There we go. Well, hello, Erin. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Well, my pleasure.
Wonderful. So, you are the executive director of the Great River Shakespeare Festival, correct? Did I get that?
Technically managing director, but it serves the role of executive director.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the comparable role within other industries, but in the
Gotcha.
theater industry, they call it managing director.
Understand. I learned something new already, and we're only 30 seconds into this. That's amazing. So tell me, we're going to talk about careers in the festival celebration, so on industry. So, talk to me a little bit about your history in that career area.
Yeah, so I started off in this field working for the Sundance Institute in Utah. I was the marketing manager for the Sundance Film Festival, and then there was an outdoor summer theater program as well that Robert Redford ran. Well, the Institute ran. He was our patron saint,
Okay.
and so we performed outdoors. At Sundance and then ran the film festival. So I got to learn about nonprofit arts administration and how it's different from the corporate world. I had been in corporate, actually real estate in the shopping center industry before that. But so I spent 6 years at Sundance, and then I went to Kansas City Repertory Theater for a year. I wanted to get that experience of producing a year-round cycle instead of just a festival cycle in the summer. And then spent 13 years in Pennsylvania running a nonprofit theater company called the Fulton Theater Company. And then came here to Winona, and I've been here 4 years now.
4 years already?
I know, time flies.
Wow. It went fast. Oh my goodness. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, a lot of people kind of stumble into their jobs, which is totally understandable. Considering all the plans and the thought that we put into it when we're younger, it's amazing where stumbling brings us. It's pretty incredible. So talk to me a little bit about how trying to figure out how to ask this. Like you can do marketing and you can do HR and you can do things like that, but what does it mean when you're looking at nonprofit festivals, things like that?
Yeah. So for me, what was really interesting is that, I knew I didn't want to be a full-time performer, and I had studied, as a performer and a director in college. And so that
Mhm.
was my background. And when I went into the shopping center industry at the time, I had no idea that people ran the mall. I thought it was just the stores, what you
Mhm.
see from the public perspective. And so I really did some thinking and realized, you know what, I bet there's a whole nother side to the theater industry from what I had experienced as a theater goer and as a student,
Mhm.
and realized that there's a big wealth of job opportunities within the theater industry. And so that was really amazing for me. And on a personal, the one thing about being in nonprofits is you have a mission that is really focused not about making money, but really about community service. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I personally wanted to do was break the cycle that I was in. My parents kept telling me that the arts were not a career that were viable to sustain a family, all this type of stuff. And I thought, you know what, I want my children to realize that they could pursue any career, that they need to understand the expectations of what that career could offer,
Mhm.
but that they could pursue whatever that they were passionate about.
Mhm.
And I thought the way I can do it is by showing them that their dad hires artists all the time. And so
Mhm.
it wouldn't be a big deal for them because they realize, no, my dad hires artists. This is not a big deal to be an artist.
Mhm.
And so I just thought, I want my career to be that being an artist is a legitimate career. You can get
Mhm.
paid, you can get health insurance, you can get pension, you can get all of these benefits, and you can be a contributing member of society, and you
Mhm.
can engage in civic dialogue through your art. That your career as an artist is just as valid as the banker, as the insurance salesman, as a factory worker, that all of these positions have a place in our community, and we need to have all of them represented in the community. So
Mhm.
that's what really drew me to the Great River Shakespeare Festival, because their mission is really about that connection with the community, and having a meaningful dialogue and growing together. And
Mhm.
so that really
Mhm.
kind of appealed to me.
Mhm. I will say that for the size of our community, we have got a remarkable number of arts festivities or celebrations that are here in town, and many people just are not even aware of whether it's the entire festival or even, bits and pieces. So, for example, how many people are aware that, and I don't know if you get to continue that, but you guys have summer camps for school kids, and
Right.
you do in-school presentations, and that's all stuff that's part of many of the festivals that are in our community, is that outreach and involvement. And we have got a lot of opportunities for people who love the arts and in our community, which is a great opportunity for many, many people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great connection. The one thing that we don't have, we have it somewhat in the visual art community, but in the performing industry, we don't have a lot of people who make their living as performing artists living in this region. and
Hmm.
and that's something that I hope is the next step of our growth, is
Hmm.
that we become a place that artists want to live. There are lots of wonderful reasons to live here,
Yes.
but it's tough to support yourself as a performing artist if that's what you do professionally,
Yep.
in the community right now. And so that,
Yep.
trying to broaden that, would be our next step of growth. But we'll get there. when
Well,
I
I actually love having conversations when the actors come into town just to hear their story and where they're from and what they've been doing. I have been fascinated by the story of every person that I've interacted with from the festival. It's amazing to hear.
Yeah, yeah,
They've got, well, and they're good storytellers, so
yeah.
it helps a lot. So for many festivals, there's that nonprofit aspect. How, for people who would imagine themselves in a business setting, how does that differ for them in terms of business management or marketing for business versus nonprofit?
Yeah, so a lot of it is the same, from an accounting standpoint. We are accrual-based accounting, and so there's a lot of financial thinking that goes into it. But the biggest thing that the for-profit world struggles to understand, and this is something that we go through with our board of directors, because most of them come from the corporate world, is that our funds are not our own. They're the
Hmm.
public's. And so whether it comes from a grant from a foundation or the government, or whether it's individual donations, those funds are for specific reasons, and we can't spend that money on just whatever we want to. And so we have to carefully track where all of the money is coming in from and for what purpose, and then report expenses accordingly, because it is the public's money that you're dealing with, and so you're accountable to that public. And
Hmm.
so that's key. And then the other side of it is that we can't choose who we serve. We serve the whole public, whether they come through our doors as a customer or not. We have a mission to serve the entire public, because we are receiving federal funds from taxpayers, state funds from taxpayers. And so even if you never attend a performance of the festival, we still are obligated to serve you, and to meet your needs. And so that is something that just, it boggles a lot of people's minds, because they think of the relationship between a customer and a business, as that's really what matters, or a shareholder in a business. Our
Hmm.
shareholders are the entire community, and so we
Hmm.
have to do things that are open to the entire community and are not discriminatory in any way. And so it's exciting because I love serving the whole community, but it puts the onus on us to find out who is not engaging and why and how can we reach them. And so that's important. And when you have something that is as niche as Shakespeare that, might only appeal to a certain segment of society, it's really our mission to seek out the people who would not find Shakespeare entertaining and find a way to reach them and serve them. So it's a challenge.
Well, and I am one of, it's not that I don't like Shakespeare, but for me, I'm a very literal-minded person, Shakespeare was a struggle when I was in high school. It really, really was, because I couldn't just read the words and take them at face value. There was some interpretation that happened there. So for a long time, I just avoided any, like, I didn't even watch the popular, Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I just was like, nope, no Shakespeare. Well, I have to say now, though, that I had been able to be a part of Great River Shakespeare things. My appreciation has changed and my understanding has changed. And I still have to follow carefully, but what you've done is make it something that is easier for Joe Public or Jill Public to be a part of that. And for many nonprofits, that is part of what they're doing is communicating, sharing that passion, making it understandable for people. So, whether you're doing for-profit or nonprofit business management or for-profit or nonprofit marketing, the day-to-day activities that you're doing are probably similar, but when it comes to nonprofits, there's a mission, there's a passion behind there that you're doing more than just selling a great pair of shoes. You're actually connecting with people. Nothing wrong with a great pair of shoes, but you're connecting with people on a different level. And so there's quite a group of people who love working in nonprofits for that reason. It's their passion.
It's great. You can buy a pair of shoes from a business, and that's great. And you've got maybe an emotional connection to the shoes, but how much can you engage with that business in, hey, I'm really jealous of my partner right now, and how do I deal with this jealousy in a productive way? And that's what Shakespeare does. And the thing that I love about this organization as well is that their focus is making everything easily understood. And I think in some ways we're served by the popular music industry because there is so much, allusion and reference, deep embedded meaning in the music industry now, and so much wordplay that happens, especially in rap culture, that is all found in Shakespeare as well. And so I think, when people, it's tough to read Shakespeare, but it's a completely different thing when you have an oral interpretation of it and a visual cues that the actors are giving as far as the meaning. And so it's very relatable, which I like. You can find answers to your own problems by going to see a play that was written 400 years ago.
Which is amazing. Anyway, well, I know a couple years ago, while we were still in school, physically in school, some of the actors stopped at my son's school, and he was able to see just a mini performance with a mock sword fight, and he was blown away. And for him to, I watched this play, and when he was telling me about it, I didn't realize that it was you guys. It wasn't until the teacher sent home the note later explaining what it was, but he was fascinated by it. And just the storytelling that happened in that process was so much more impactful to him than had he read it in a book or had me read it to him. So you do have either he's a Shakespeare lover or a sword fight lover. Either way.
Both work. And how many jobs can you say that it's your job to study sword fighting? But that's one of the things that kind of comes out through this. Our artistic director is a fight choreographer, and he just was hired a couple of years ago. One of the toy companies came out with a lightsaber that had 4 different lightsaber actions that were part of it. And so he choreographed the commercial for that toy, but because he knew the 4 different combat styles that were being represented, and who thinks that that's a career, but it is.
It is. It is. I actually it, recently read an article about Dustin Hoffman's preparation for his role in Rain Man.
Hmm.
And he spent a couple of years getting involved in the community with autistic people just to understand the role that he was going to be playing in that movie. So just, I mean, to know and to be able to live that part brings an understanding that he couldn't have gotten any other way. I mean, just amazing. He is now involved in that community forever because of that engagement. So strange but true.
Yeah.
That's one of those random knowledge things that my kids give me trouble for. So let's talk about what I don't know how this is going to be related, but education and training. What kinds of things could you suggest to people or would be required for festivals or nonprofit management that students can
Yeah.
prepare for?
Well, what I found helpful is to have knowledge both from what I do as far as running the business side of things, to have a knowledge of what the artist needs. So to get some training in the art itself, but then also get the training and the business side of things. So having that mix is really important, because you sometimes get people that are just total business people, and then they treat the artists very poorly. And almost as if they're the robots that are creating this. But understanding the variables that the artists need in order to be in an environment that is going to allow their creativity to flourish. Setting up that environment. So it's really important to have a great foundational knowledge of what the artists need. On the practical side, I have found that it's really important to have good math skills. And it's not so much, the addition, multiplication, so much as the creative thinking that goes behind problem solving. And that's, my day is never the same twice. There are new problems constantly coming. And when I was in high school, I was in a calculus class, and I kept asking the teacher, why do I need to know this? I want to go into the arts. And this is, trying to figure out what trajectory a rocket needs to go in order to hit its target, that's traveling at this speed. I was like, I never need to know that information. And the truth is, in all my career, I've never had to calculate those questions. But every day I use the skills I learned in calculus, because it taught me to look at problems from all sorts of different angles and then find a way to solve it when the answer was not readily apparent. And that I use all the time, just kind of dissecting problems and then looking at them from different angles and then moving forward with a solution, creating a hypothesis and then testing your hypothesis and seeing if it works. All that we do in the scientific method gets used in the arts every day. It's just you're applying it to art instead of chemicals, So the training of your mind is really important. So, that's the biggest takeaway, was that all those things that were not arts related end up becoming arts related because of how it trains your mind to think.
Mhm. Mhm. So before we go, any other advice you want to share with our high school students who are trying to find their place in terms of career?
Yeah, I would just say that there is a place for you. If you find yourself with a particular passion about something, that there are people who make a career out of it. There may not be thousands, and they may not be in your hometown, but there are people who make that their career, and you can find those people. And online, really is really helpful. For those that don't know what their interests are, a great thing to do is to get involved with a nonprofit. And it can be a social service agency, it could be an arts nonprofit. But when you get involved in a nonprofit, either as a volunteer or in a part-time basis or whatever, you get exposed to a lot of things that happen in the community. Like, I've learned more about government by working in the nonprofits field than I ever would have working in the corporate field. And so, you get exposed to a lot of different things in the nonprofit realm, and that can help you find what your focus is. And so, when I was working for the Sundance Institute, I thought it was great. I was around celebrities all the time. That was really kind of, I got to meet celebrities that I always wanted to meet. And that was really cool. But in the process, I learned what it was that I wanted to do. And I would ask people who used to work at Sundance and no longer did, I would say, why would you ever leave this job? And they said, oh, you'll figure it out. And I thought, no, I will never leave. I will never leave. And then I found what it was that I was most passionate about, which for me wasn't just the theater. It was connecting an artist and an audience member together and really bridging that gap. And so I found that was my passion. It wasn't about filmmaking. It wasn't about writing new plays. It was about artists and audiences. And so I said, I have to go to a theater company that produces for audiences year round. And that's why I left. But I found that passion and was able to hone it because I was involved, in a nonprofit that gave me that space to grow. So anyway, that's my advice.
That is wonderful. That's one of our, we have a local here in Winona corporate trainer, Diane Amundsen, if you know her. One of the presentations that I've heard her give is to tell students exactly what you just talked about. Don't worry about finding the right fit. Just do something and eventually you'll figure out the right fit.
Yeah.
And I mean, that reminded of her, when you said that, reminded me of her presentation on that, sometimes it takes a little while to find what that is. And until then, keep trying things out and see what happens.
Yeah. And it can be frustrating because some of your friends are going to figure themselves out a lot sooner than you're going to figure yourself out. And that's okay. I've got a 31-year-old daughter who is still trying to figure it out. And, the truth is it may take her, there's no time limit on it. Meanwhile, she's had great experiences that have helped to shape that. And she's had experiences that any employer would love to have an employee who is experienced in the type of things that she's done along the way. So, just keep working at it and it'll all make sense in the end.
It'll make sense in the end. Well, thank you again for making yourself available today and for sharing your information with our students. This is going to be very, very helpful. I'm going to